Hello, in this video I want to show you how to analyze oscillatory shear measurement data using OSR-Tool. You can access OSR-Tool at this URL. I want to introduce oscillatory shear briefly. First, I would like to apologize because I did not plan this video properly, and I will be quick. So in oscillatory shear rheology, you have a rheometer and you have some kind of sample, the yellow colored material, and some geometry like this comb plate, right? Or if you have parallel plate or cup and bob, depending on what you have. So sinusoidal strain is applied like this. So you see the strain can be characterized by an amplitude, a frequency, and the time is the independent variable. So when the strain amplitude is small, the stress can be written this way. It's just a kind of a similar signal in terms of frequency, but shifted by some phase. So two simple material functions, G prime and G double prime, for example, can be defined using this relationship. So what then happens in a strain sweep is that you have a strain. This is we are referring to some strain controlled test setup or strain control rheometer. So you have a strain, and this stress is observed when the strain amplitude is small. So you can also turn this relationship into something in terms of the G prime and G double prime, which are material functions, and simple mathematical treatment to eliminate time. You have this kind of relationship, and what this relationship shows is that when the strain amplitude is small, the strain stress plot, otherwise called the Lissajous curve, traces a pure elliptical path, as you can see. However, when the strain amplitude is large, also known as Low's test or large amplitude oscillatory shear, when the strain amplitude is large, even though the strain can still be sinusoidal, the strain is sure sinusoidal, right? Because this is the standard for oscillatory shear rheology. So even though this strain is sinusoidal with some large strain amplitude, we can no longer represent the stress as we did before. And this is because in that case, in the Low's case, we have different harmonics or different frequencies that are usually multiples of the fundamental frequency. So this relationship fails in this regime. So for example, if you plot the strain and the stress, the Lissajous curves, we no longer see some elliptical path, elliptical relationship. So to interpret results for Low's test, other approaches like FT rheology, stress decomposition, and etc. are used. So you can see some examples. We are going to also see some kind of analysis you can do with OSR-Tool. So I will skip this. So if you want to learn more, you can access our recent publication on this topic. So there are several examples of parameters that one can use to analyze oscillatory shear test of a real material, or even in computational environment. So I will go ahead and then show you practically how to use OSR-Tool. So I will exit this. So you can access OSR-Tool by going to this URL. So first of all, you can see some links here. So I will click on the research paper. Let's look at what is in it. So this is the research paper, and I will quickly highlight some of the analysis you can do with OSR-Tool. So this is a conventional strength sweep, what you would get by performing a strain amplitude sweep. So in this case, the strain amplitude is increased from small values. So you see, we started from 10 to the -2, and swept up to about this is 500%. So this is 5. So that is the range of the strain amplitude. So what happens here is that the rheometer conducts oscillatory shear at different strain amplitudes. So you can see all these circles, the symbols. Each individual symbol represents one oscillatory shear cycle. So it is from this oscillatory shear cycle that you can compute like the first harmonic, that is G1 prime and G double prime, also known as G prime and G double prime in the linear viscoelastic regime. And there are other analysis one can do. So this is just a plot of the raw stress signal. So you see, the stress signal is sinusoidal in the small strain amplitude regime. So that's why you have only one harmonic present when you take the Fourier transform. So only I1 is significant. The rest is maybe regarded as noise data. So, but if you look at the stress signal in the large amplitude zone, this is not a pure sinusoid, and if you take the Fourier transform, you will notice that there are several significant harmonics in the present in the stress data. So some of the analysis you can do is stress decomposition. I suggest you read this paper in detail, or the Chebyshev parameters. You can find more information via this paper. Another thing is the Q value, which is plotted here, and also the associated Q0 value. So the blue line is the I3, I1, or the ratio of the third harmonic to the first harmonic. So what this line shows is that as the strain amplitude increases, the third harmonic gains traction in the contribution to the total stress. So you can also analyze various other harmonics like the third, fifth, seventh, ninth, 11th. It depends on what you want. So also one very popular analytics parameter, the stiffening and the thickening ratio. You can calculate that. I will show you how to get these values from OSR-Tool. So I would suggest you go through this paper in detail to know more, including also a sequence of physical processes by Professor Simon Rogers. So please go through this paper, and you can read it for free from the OSR-Tool website by coming down to the links and clicking on the research paper. So it's available for free. So what I will do next is to go ahead and show you how to carry out a real analysis of some real experimental data. So kindly hold on. So here I have an experiment that I have already done. So this is I did this using a TA instrument rheometer. Is the same rheometer that is you saw in the presentation. So this is RSG2 and the Trio software. So So this is the file. So your typical Laos experiment will produce this kind of file if you are in if you use RSG2 and Trios. So I will go ahead and open it with Trios software. So this is all the oscillations. So it kind of plotted everything from the smallest strain amplitude in percent up to the largest. So you can see this is 600, so probably this is 500. The strain sweep began at some small amplitude up to 500%. So that's why you have this. Depending on your rheometer type, you might have a similar thing, but OSR-Tool can handle all kinds of data, both computationally generated data, like using some model or experimental data. So, but I would like you to see what is in this file. So this is folded. Let me open it. So you see sine strain 1, sine strain 2, up to sine strain 42. So all these sine strain 1 to 42 represent some oscillatory shear at some oscillation at a specific strain amplitude. So this is the starting strain amplitude, a complete oscillation, and another oscillation up to sine strain 42. So I would guess that sine strain 42 is the oscillation at 500%. So each one represents some oscillation. It is possible to export just one of these files. For example, sine strain 16, I can click on it and export just one of these. If you want to analyze this kind of data with OSR-Tool, you can do that. But I prefer to export everything together, and that is possible too. So if I want to analyze this, I close this, so I have the entire file. So I can right click on it and go to export. So I'm exporting the entire file, the entire oscillation. So I go to export, I click on to Excel. So there are several options, but probably you don't need to worry about this. So I think the most important option for me is to export to the files directory. So I will export this to the files directory, so that the exported file will be in the same directory. I don't need to open Excel at the end of export. So I will click OK, and the export will begin. So we need to be a little bit patient. So file export succeeded. I will close, minimize this. So this is the file that we have exported, which I'm going to analyze. Let me make this window a little bit smaller. So we are going to analyze this exported data. This is a Laos strain sweep. So let me open it first. So I just opened it, and let's take a look. So we see sine strain 42, sine strain 41, sine strain 40, all the sine strain, and each sine strain here represents some oscillation. So you notice that in any given sheet, all these things are sheets. So we have maybe sine strain 1 to sine strain 42. So we have 42 sheets, and each sheet represents some oscillation. So this is the strain that the rheometer applied to the material, and then it measured the stress, of course, everything over time. So this is applied sinusoidal strain, and then the rheometer recorded the stress and over time. So this is normal force, temperature. We're not interested in this. You probably will be interested in this in your actual analysis of your overall data. So for analyzing the oscillatory shear allows parameters, only the time, the strain and the stress are important data here, but this one and this one doesn't matter. So I will close this file and then I will do the actual analysis. So I close this. So to analyze with OSR-Tool is simple. You can either click on tab to select. If you tap to select, you can then go to the folder and select, but I prefer to drag the file and drop on this area. So by dropping your file here, it has loaded the file, and right now you can view the sheets in this file. So you see I have only one file. It is possible to analyze multiple files at once. So, but in this case, I'm analyzing a single file. But inside a single file, I have different sheets, as you have already seen. So this is the first oscillation, second oscillation, up to the oscillation number 42. So perhaps let's look at the content of an oscillation once again. So you can click on View Edit. So this is similar to what we've seen before. The important parameters are the time, the stress, and the strain. So because OSR-Tool can identify files from trios automatically, but if the automatic identification doesn't work, there is a space for you to specify the column numbers for the time, the strain, and the stress. So if your file throws some error when you try to analyze it, then what you need to do is to open your file the same way I just opened this, and take note of what column is this time. So here, column number 1 is time, column number 3 is the strain, and column number 2 is the stress. So you need to take note of this. That is, if your file is not automatically dictated, assuming you are not using a trios generated, trios exported file. So I will close this. Of course, you can also view other any of these sheet data. Sorry. So the next now we do is to perform the analysis. And before I do that, you can always plot your data. So for example, if I want to visualize what I have here, I can plot, for example, the time on the x-axis, so, and then the stress on the y-axis. I can draw the chart. So as you can see, this is the time and stress data. You can also add other plot, for example, the strain. So you can use this to easily plot a graph. And you can change the axis. For example, now the x-axis is linear scale. So if I want to change to logarithm, I just click once. So this is log scale, but time is better viewed in the time in this case is better viewed in the linear scale. So you can also toggle the y-axis to logarithm. And if you want to change the settings, you can do so from here. So for example, you can set the title of the plot, the label of the x-axis, the label of the y-axis, whether log or log x-axis or so, and placement of the legend or the width and height of the graph. Also, what happens when you navigate. But the easiest way to change the navigation properties is here. So now, if I click on next, nothing happens because probably it is trying to go to the next file, but we only have one file. So you can also toggle your navigation if you want to navigate from one sheet data to another sheet data. So when you click here, it says sheets. So if I click next, it plots the next sheet. So you see the previous one is sine strain 1. I go to sine strain 2, sine strain 3. So you can use this feature to quickly look at your data. So I can go all the way to the last one. So you can see that the stress data, which is blue, is becoming nonlinear, for example. So you can use this feature to quickly go through your data. So now I'm going to the sheet. If you change to files, it tries to go to the next file, but there is no other file, so you only have one file. So probably the sheet is the better better view to have. And you can save the file by clicking save here. So if I click on save, now I have my file. So you can also export your data. So if I export now, I'll be looking at exporting the raw data. So if I want to export, for example, the time, the strain, and the stress, and you can arrange your columns in any order you want. So now I'm going to export the time, strain, and stress. I just place them here, and then I click on save. You can put a specific name for this, but I will just save it with some automatically generated name. So now I have the exported file. So you can see I exported the time, the strain, and the stress column. So you can use this to always export your data depending on your needs. So now we are going to do the actual loss analysis. So if I want to analyze loss, it's simple. You can click on this button, analyze oscillatory shear, or you can click here. You still see the same thing, analyze oscillatory shear. They do basically the same thing. So let me click on the closest button. So I click here. So when you click on this, different options open. So you have stress filtering. So when you want to filter the stress, because in a real rheological response, without any problem, only the odd harmonics are going to be present in the stress data. But problems like sample breakage, wall slip, and other things can make odd harmonics even harmonics to be in the data. So if you want to filter your data to make it cleaner, you can use the stress filtering option. And then when you do that, you have to specify how many harmonics do you want to use to do the actual filtering. So let's leave it unchecked for now, and leave this one unchecked also. You can also use last cycle, because if you look at the oscillatory shear data that we have, the cycle is a little bit more than one. So and for you to perform loss analysis, only one cycle is enough, one cycle. So you can decide to take that one cycle from the beginning of the data or from the end. So let me show you what this means. So you see, a full cycle of this sweep will probably, so the strain is the red one. So one full cycle means from here all the way to here. So you see, the other extra from here to here is some extra data. So this is like one cycle and a half. So if you want to analyze your loss, you can decide to do it from here to here. That is from the beginning of the data, or you can also do it from here to maybe here, right? So this is also one full cycle, and you can use that to do your loss analysis. So for example, if there is a problem here, you probably want to use the first cycle, or if there is some problem at the start of the oscillation, you probably want to use the last cycle. So that's what this use last cycle means. So normalized transients means you want to normalize the data that is contained in the transient section. So we are going to see that later. And then this time, strain, stress columns is what I said earlier. If your data is not dictated automatically, you can provide the software with what column is your time, what column is your strain, and then what column is your stress. So you have to enter that here. So for example, if you enter this value, it means that we can find the time data in column 1, we can find the strain data in column 3, and we can find the stress data in column 2. So but in this case, our data has been exported by Trio, so it is automatically generated. But if it is not automatically generated, you can always open your Excel spreadsheet and look up for which column it corresponds to time, strain, and stress, and enter it by yourself. So this record harmonics is if you want to save the harmonic data for some reason, you can choose how many harmonics you want, and then also the INI1. So if you want to check the ratio of some higher harmonics to the first harmonic, Now if you don't put anything, it only records the I3, I1. So that is what this means. So IN, N here is 3. So you have IN over I1. So I can put 11, for example. In this case, it will record up to I11 over I1. So also, if your strain is in percent, you can check here. This is especially important when your file is not automatically dictated. So if your strain is in percent, you can check here so that it will be divided by 100. So I will click run. So let's click run. So after running, new sets of data has been generated. So the two new sets of data is the intercycle analysis and the intracycle analysis. So these are two different sets. The my files is the original file that we have. So if you go back to my files, for example, what you are going to see is the original file. So but I'm going to pay more attention to the newly generated data. So we have intercycle analysis button, which contains intercycle data, and then the intracycle analysis button is where you access the intracycle data. So let's look at what we have in the intercycle analysis. So here only one sheet is generated, so called intercycle data. So let's view what is inside. So if you view this, you see that we have the sequence number. So all these, each one, like this number 1 is like one oscillation at some specific strain amplitude. So in this case, is an oscillation at this strain amplitude, another oscillation at some strain amplitude. So these are data that is obtained for one for every cycle. So for example, the G prime and the G double prime. So at this strain amplitude, this is the G prime that has been calculated, and this is the G double prime. So at subsequent strain amplitude, this is the G prime, G double prime, and so on. So we have about 42 different data oscillations at different amplitudes. So this is the end strain amplitude, 500%, which is like 5. So this is 4.98 approximately. And if you look, you notice that this data has been spaced logarithmically. So you can look at other columns to see the data that has been generated. So you see G prime, G double prime, the G star, the complex modulus. That is also we have the I3, I1, the Q value, the G subscript M, GL. You can find the meanings of all this from the paper. So I will not go over everything. The stiffening ratio and the stiffening and thickening ratio, dissipation ratio, the frequency. You can see that this experiment was conducted at 1 radian per second. So the stress mass, tan delta. So you can look up literature, published papers or textbook for meaning of all this. And then finally, because we chose to calculate IN, I1 up to 11, so that's why we have you see it added I5, I1, I7, I1, I9, I1. Probably it stopped here at the I9, I1. So you can adjust according to how much stuff you want. So let's plot some data in the intercycle section. So for example, I can plot the classical strain sweep presentation. So because it is in linear plot now, it looks like this, but this kind of data is better viewed in a log plot. So log. So this is the log plot of the strain amplitude sweep. Of course, this axis is the G prime and G double prime in Pascal or whatever unit. Make sure that your units are consistent, and this is the strain amplitude, probably from 0.01 to 5. So let's plot a few more things. So instead of plotting against this, I can plot I3, I1 together with Q, for example. So this is the blue curve is I3, I1, and this is the Q value. Of course, you can also make other plots. So anything here can be plotted, stiffening and thickening ratio. So if you look, you notice that, let me make the y-axis linear. So this is example of where perhaps stress filtering can help you, because these values are calculated. Probably, you can check up the paper. Usually values that are calculated via that differentiation may have some noisy data. So in this case, you can do some stress filtering and check if it makes the data better. So this is what you have here is everything you can access in the intercycle data. Usually these material functions are plotted against the strain amplitude. Finally, let me plot the stress maximum. The maximum stress. So you have strain amplitude along the x-axis and the stress along the y-axis. So this is the maximum stress. So you see that it is linear over a period of some section of the strain amplitude, then becomes non-linear, and you can find more information about other parameters in other research. So let's look at what we have in the intracycle analysis section. So in this intracycle analysis section, you can open here once again. So because these ones are intracycle, meaning that they are within the cycle, so you see several sheets are used to store the values for each oscillation. So we have from the first oscillation to the last oscillation. So if you want to view the intracycle data for the first oscillation, A here means amplitude, and W has been used to for omega, which is the frequency, so in radian per second. So the first oscillation happened at strain amplitude of 0.01, and the last oscillation happened at strain amplitude of 5, that is 4.98, approximately 5. So every oscillation was carried out at a frequency of 1 radian per second. So let's look at some content of each one. Of course, they have the same content. The difference is the strain amplitude. So if you look inside this one, you see time. So this is the oscillation time, the strain and the strain rate, the stress, elastic stress, viscous stress from stress decomposition. Then the G prime underscore T, that is the transient G prime from a sequence of physical processes. And also the G double prime underscore T, or the transient G double prime. Also the derivative of G prime subscript T and G double prime subscript T related to a sequence of physical processes. And then the raw stress. This raw stress is very important. When you check the bus that does stress filtering, then what you have in the first stress column, this one, is the actual stress that has been used. In that case, it's going to be filter stress. And what you are going to have in the raw stress is the original stress, not filtered. So these two columns, for example, you can use it to compare how the filter stress is similar or different from the raw stress. So to ensure things are accurate, you don't want the filter stress to be significantly different from the raw stress, because the whole idea of using the filter stress is to remove noise, not to change the stress signal entirely. So you probably want to plot the filter stress and the raw stress together and ensure that both of them matches one another. So you also have the harmonic number, all the harmonics you decided to save. you can see harmonic number 1 to 60 because that is the default range that is saved, and also the harmonic intensity associated with it, and then the transient tan delta, which is also is related to the SPP, sequence of physical processes. So if you want to know more about all these parameters, I suggest you consult some literature, some textbook, research paper, or some conference paper, as the case may be. So before we end, let's try to plot some intercycle data. So let's see how that goes. So to plot, you click on the columns button. So let's plot first. Let's plot the time, the stress, and the raw stress. So I will expect this to be the same because we did not do any stress filtering. So we didn't filter the stress. So that's why you have the raw and the filtered stress. In this case, there is no filtration, so both of them are essentially the same. So they overlap each other. But if you do some filtering, then you might want to see what happens. So let's also plot some other thing. So for example, to plot things related to stress decomposition, you can plot the strain versus the stress. So this is a Lissajous figure, and then you can add the elastic stress, so which is the decomposed part, the decomposed part of the total stress. So the elastic component only. So this is what we have, and you can also use this button to look at all your data at once. So we are increasing the strain amplitude and looking at the rest of the data. So we went all the way to, we've gone all the way to the end. So this is a very quick way to go through your data. Another thing you can do here is to plot the other viscous view, which is plot the strain rate versus the stress, and then insert the viscous component of the stress from stress decomposition. So you can see these jagged edges because we did not filter our stress. This is high frequency noise. So this is some kind of things that the stress filtering can remove. So you can also view these items, and every time you can always export your data by clicking on the export. So if you want to export this data, for example, we plotted the strain rate and the stress and the viscous stress, or no matter what you want to export, you can always select them and click on save. So it's what you see is what you get. So by saving this, we have our data. Let me see if the spreadsheet can also make this kind of plot. So insert, no, I don't remember where the insert, right? Insert chart, something like a line chart. Yeah, so I exported and plotted with Excel spreadsheet. So you can basically export whatever you want. So I don't want to save this. So let us try a few more parameters and then end. So let's plot something from SPP, Cocoa plot. So you are looking at the SPP plot, and you can go through all your SPP data, and you can also export if you want by selecting the relevant data you want to export. And then let's try the harmonic number and harmonic intensity. So in this case, it's better to present the y-axis as log. So if you do that, you can see clearly the harmonics. So this is the first harmonic, the third harmonics, the fifth harmonic, the seventh harmonic, and the 9th harmonic. So you see that at high strain amplitude, what strain amplitude is this? This is 85%, right? If I'm correct. So you have all these harmonics in the data, but if you go back to smaller strain amplitude, you would notice that only the first harmonic is significant. So the smaller the strain amplitude, the more you have just the first harmonic or the lower harmonics present. So in this case, we essentially have only the first harmonic. So we can go all the way to the beginning. So here, only the first harmonic is clearly present. The rest are probably noise data. So your own analysis will determine what you would like to export, but OSR-Tool allows you to export whatever you want. So please make use of that. And then if you want to export your intercycle data, for example, you also switch to the intercycle data. So you have to click on it, and then you can plot something if you want. That is not compulsory. So this kind of plot is better in a log plot. So if I want to export this data, this is G prime and G double prime. First of all, I will chart settings, right? Let me set some. So this is strain amplitude. I think is not in any unit. So, and the y-axis is G prime and the G double prime, and the unit I believe is Pascal. So I added this and this, but you know, this is just to visualize your data before you export and plot with your Ferrite plotting tool. So I can notice that the x-axis label did not show up, so probably because of the log axis, but you understand what is going on, I believe. So if you want to export this data, for example, now you can click on export. If you want the strain amplitude, the G prime, G double prime, of course you can select whatever you want. For example, if you need the G star, I3, I1, Q, it all depends on you. So you click on save. You can enter an optional file name, then and click save once more, and you have your data. So this is the data I've exported. And if you have multiple files, when you make an export like this, all your files will be together. So you are probably going to have one file here, some space, another file, another file. So in when I was working actively here, I normally analyze multiple files at once. So it's up to you. So is there anything else? So basically you have your my files, which is your original file that you begin analysis with, the intercycle data, which is like the parameter that has been computed, one at each strain amplitude, and then the intracycle analysis, which has intracycle based parameters, mostly transient data like the stress, strain. Of course you can open this and look at the data by yourself. So usually these things are things you do against time, with the exception of the harmonic intensity and the harmonic number. So other ones are normally plotted against time except harmonic number and harmonic intensity. So I suggest you check other literature sources and understand better, including the attached paper. So I believe that we've covered everything. My file is your original file. Intercycle data is your things you normally plot against the strain amplitude, G prime, G double prime against strain amplitude, Chebyshev polynomial, Chebyshev parameters, stiffening and thickening ratio, and so on. So, for example, if you want to perform analysis of the data again, you can click on my files, and when you click on my file, it means you are now accessing your original file, so you can actually repeat the analysis once more. So when you are in my files, you are essentially looking at your original file. So let's just do some quick repeat analysis. So I will click on Analyze Oscillatory Shear. So the previous one we did not do stress filtering, but this time around let's do some stress filtering. I will use only the first and the third harmonic. So in that case I enter 2. So 2 means 1, 3, because what this option does is you write the number of odd harmonics you want. So the first odd harmonic is 1, the third odd harmonics is the next. So 2 means 1 and 3. If you enter 3, it means 1, 3, 5. So I can also choose to use the last part of the cycle, then rerun my analysis. So we have also reanalyzed the data once more. So intercycle still remains the same. So you can look at your intercycle. This is the same data, but this time around we are using stress filtering with only the first and the third harmonics. So let us plot something like the stiffening and the thickening ratio once more. Let's see what we have. So I believe this is log, right? So what if I change this axis to linear? So you probably want to view this, and this is not G double prime, this is stiffening and thickening ratio. So it's better to change. This is not G double prime, this is S and T. Of course they don't have any unit because it's a ratio. So this is S and T, the stiffening and thickening ratio. So now you can see the benefit of the stress filtering. And why this happens is because the noise that we saw previously is because of differentiation noise, I believe. So because differentiation is highly affected by noise, so you probably want to do stress filtering for the smaller strain amplitude and then leave the higher strain amplitude unfiltered. So for example, you can export this data now. You know you filtered the strain amplitude, but you are interested in only, so let me show you what I mean. So I'm going to export this data, just S and T, stiffening and thickening ratio. So S and T. I click on save, right? So what you are looking at now is the strain amplitude, the stiffening and the thickening ratio. But remember that I use stress filtering. So stress filtering is good in the smaller strain, in the smaller amplitude oscillatory shear regime, that the South regime, when the strain amplitude is small. But when the strain amplitude is large, stress filtering might result in loss of some data. So what you can do is to retain data within the small strain amplitude. So this is 0.009 or essentially 0.01. So if your small strain amplitude stops, let's go back to here. So probably this is still small strain amplitude regime. This is 0.085. So you can come to this data and locate 0.085, right? 0.085. So where is it? 0.085. So here. So this is a small amplitude regime. All this, right? So all this is correct because there are no higher harmonics here. We use the first and the third, right? They are sufficient. But if you believe that this regime might lose some data because of the stress filtering, what you can do is to click here and go all the way to the last one here and delete it. So when you delete it, you can go back again and analyze your data. You go back to my files then analyze your data once more. But instead of doing stress filtering here, you forget about it, you don't do that. So we are not going to filter the stress. This is disabled, right? So we are not going to filter the stress. So which means the whole data is going to be accurate, right? Because it will account for all the stress. So we run this. So now we have the same data again, but with all the stress components intact. So you go back to your okay, let me plot the same thing again. So if I plot the strain against stiffening and thickening ratio, I see that this part of the data is affected by noise. So what I'm going to do is I will export this. So if you want to export this, you can export the same thing again, strain amplitude, stiffening and the thickening ratio, right? And then click on save. So now I have my data. But the difference between this and the previous one is that this one contains all the information we need. So the previous one, we have cut anything below 0.085. So here I'm going to recover the data that we have cut. So we're going to start from 0.09. So because this is the part that we have cut, because we use stress filtering. So now I select this, I can copy this, right? So I copy this, I go back to my other data, no need to save this one, I will paste it here. I probably did not copy it correctly, but you already understand what I mean. So you have the full data where it is necessary and the filtered data where it is necessary, because in the small strain amplitude regime, only the first harmonic makes sense, and so it's very good to, it's not a bad idea to use the two, for example, the first and the third. So that is an example of how you can use this, and you can apply this in the intracycle. So if I repeat this one more time, maybe the last time, with stress filtering and the first and the third, what this means is the first and the third harmonics, and I click on run. I go to the intercycle data. I can plot this, for example, remove the logarithm. Of course the labels are wrong, so probably I should delete them, or if I want, I can also type the actual thing. So we have a G prime, right, underscore T on the x-axis, and G double prime underscore T. This is from Sequence of Physical Processes, SPP. So now you can go through your data and look at your SPP parameters. So you don't want to use this stress filtering at high strain amplitude when you are aware that there are other stress harmonics, other component harmonics within the data. So it's useful when you are dealing with the small amplitude region. And one interesting thing we can now do here is to plot because we remember we use stress filtering here, so we are going to plot the time, the stress data. This stress is the filtered stress, right, because we did stress filtering, and the raw stress means the original unfiltered stress. So this is the small amplitude regime, I believe. Let me go ahead and clear the axis labels. So this is actually the stress and the raw stress. So if you look, this is the small strain amplitude regime. You see that they match each other, showing that the first and the third harmonic component alone is able to reconstruct the stress. So as I go forward, you notice that they all match each other, so the stress filtering is accurate here. So let's see, even up to this place, they essentially match with a little differences. But as you go to much higher strain amplitude, you can now start seeing differences. The raw stress is not very much the same with the filter stress. The blue one is the filter stress. So that is what the stress filtering essentially means. So thank you for your attention, and I wish you good luck in analyzing your LAOS data using OSR-Tool. If you have any question, you can post as a comment in this video, or you can send me an email. My email, you can access my email by looking at the documentation. I think it's on the first page, right? The documentation, you can click on the PDF manual. The email is on the first page. Of course, you can always read the research paper to know more about everything we've discussed. There is also the Q&A page where you can post